Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm actually going to be bringing you guys my mental health recommendations video. If you didn't know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we're going to be talking today about 6 books that I thought were actually well representing mental health. Now, one of these books is more of an honorable mention, but let's just get started. Yeah, the first book I want to bring you guys today is going to be called Sad Perfect by Stephanie Elliott. When I read it, I personally felt it did not have the best representation of mental health, and actually my copy is being borrowed by my best friend right now, and it was slightly of a different cover, and I do think this has like more representation to the story, because in Sad Perfect we follow this girl named P. She becomes kind of obsessed with her boyfriend, and she was really relationship driven, and that was my problem with the story. Like, we don't follow just the story of her eating disorder. We follow the story of her relating everything back to her boyfriend, how she wants to get better for her boyfriend, how her boyfriend is just the driving force, how like she's like a child and she thinks she's in love. And that was the problem I had with the story. It didn't feel too realistic to me that someone who was struggling with their eating would be that relationship driven. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure you can find someone else who might have better thoughts about it. I actually picked this book up last year because I saw Emma Books recommend it, and I was actually disappointed in it. I only ended up giving it, I think, a 3 out of 5 stars, and I do have a review on my Goodreads, which I will link down below. The next book I want to talk to you guys about is one that I've had in my life for a few years. I first read this book in 2010, and I've reread it I think 2 times since in hopes to continue on with the series, and that is going to be Crank by Ellen Hopkins. I was introduced to this book in 2010 in my sophomore English class when we were told to pick a book that was on the New York Times bestseller list and write a report on it. I don't remember which book I picked. Well, no, I think I do. I think I had picked Witch and Wizard by James Patterson because I was kind of obsessed with that series at the time. And a girl in my class picked Crank, and I was actually interested in it. It seemed interesting to me, and in Crank, we follow Christina, who has like good grades, like she's a great student, and then she goes off one summer to visit her dad. She meets this guy who lives in his apartment her dad uses, everyone around her uses, and it's just a very bad situation, and she gets thrown into it, and eventually she herself starts using. And in Crank, this is the story of her getting introduced to what she calls the monster, and basically changing who she is. Yeah, it's insane, but it's all told in verse, so it's actually a really fast read, and it's one I would highly recommend. The next book I'm going to talk about today is actually one I don't remember much of the story on, but I know it has to do with drugs, and that is Go Ask Alice. I first picked up Go Ask Alice in 2016, 2017, before I had actually started watching BookTube. And yeah, it's short, it's told in journal entries, and it's actually a way I love because it's like you sit there and see like what drugs do to this girl, like based on her opinions, and it definitely does end on kind of a cliffhanger. So yeah, no, it's one I would recommend, and I would recommend picking this up highly. I think I gave this like a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I would also recommend is going to be The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Now, everyone knows this story. A lot of people have seen the movie. I actually have the movie cover. I wanted to read it because I didn't know what it was about. I had not heard anything about it, and boy, was it hard hitting. I cried. Like, you are following the story, and when everything ends up happening and like the big reveal happens, it just hits you. It's shocking. I never saw it coming. I don't know about anyone else. But yeah, no, if you're looking for something quick, it's only a couple hundred pages, I think. Like 212, I think it is. So, you know, if you're looking for like a quick, fast read, I would recommend picking this up. The next book I'm going to talk about is one I think I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to, and I read it actually this year, and that is Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. In Girl in Pieces, we follow Charlotte, or better known as Charlie, and she's homeless. She doesn't have a good relationship with her mother. She uses a lot of drugs, and everything's just terrible for this girl. Like, this is heartbreaking. And then she moves out of, she gets found by her friends and they drop her off at a hospital. She gets forced to leave the hospital, and she moves to Arizona to be with another friend who got clean. And in that time, like, she ends up kind of falling down a rabbit hole. She moves out of that friend's house into like this really sketchy apartment. One of her friends from the hospital come to visit. She ends up in a really bad relationship. And yeah, it was just insanity and heartbreaking, and I just wanted to cry during all of it. So yeah, no, I would highly recommend this. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and it does deal with self-harm. So just a little trigger warning for that. And the last book I'm going to talk about today is the first mental health book I completely fell in love with. It's the first book I actually read in maybe about 7 hours, all in one day, all in one sitting. I think I only stopped for like bathroom breaks and getting food. And that is going to be Other Broken Things by C. Desir. Now, this book, you follow Natalie. She's not an alcoholic, according to her. She does not have a problem. But eventually, she ends up going to required AA meetings, and she cannot drink anymore. And her dad puts like a breathalyzer in her car that she cannot start her car unless she blows on that breathalyzer. So it's bad. And then she meets, while she's in like her AA meetings, what's wrong, Ghost? I'll scratch your head. While she's at her AA meetings, she meets Joe. And Joe is like this man she falls in love with. It's a significant age difference, and it's chaotic. She's happy, but her parents aren't. And it's just the story of how like her broken home and everything that like completely shattered her life gets put back together. Like, I can't even describe it because I didn't know much about it other than what was written on the back when I went in. And I think it is better to go in blind. That's actually how I think a lot of these are. It is better to go in blind. So this book does have a trigger warning for alcoholism. And what are you doing? Don't show your butt to the camera. That's not polite. Okay, you can lay back there. But no, this book is actually amazing. It was a 5 out of 5 star. And I'm actually surprised I don't hear more people talking about this. I have actually never seen anyone talk about it here on BookTube. It could just be who I'm watching, but I've even searched it up, and just wow. Just this book completely blindsided me, and I picked it up because of this cover, because this cover is just gorgeous. Well, that's going to be it, guys, from me and Ghost. We will see you later this week. Oh, she's laying down already. Okay. Well, I'll see you later this week when I post another video. I post videos weekly, so make sure you hit subscribe if you want to see more of my content.